And a person who's free isn't condemned or thrown in jail or beaten until they have a fair trial, or at least until the evidence is there that would warrant a fair trial. Otherwise, they ought to, I mean, look, if they take me down and I sit in that jail cell for 24 hours, nobody's telling me what I'm accused of, there's no evidence except just one person said something. Does the Bible say one witness is enough to arrest somebody? Don't even receive the accusation from one witness. So if somebody calls on the phone and says, Stephen Anderson's doing this, this, and this, and they come and arrest me, is that right? No. And even under American law, supposedly, if I'm sitting in that jail cell 24 hours later, they don't have any evidence, they don't have anything to accuse me of, they have to let me go. See you later. There's nothing we can do because there's no evidence. And they can't beat me and say, tell us what you did. Tell us what you were thinking about doing. Hey, that's the Fifth Amendment. I have the right not to be. That's freedom. That's what the Bible says. Does everybody understand point number one? That you're innocent until proven guilty. It's American law, it's the Constitution, and it's the Bible. It's the Bible method. It's all throughout God's law. And by the way, the law of the Lord is perfect. And you know what else it's called? The law of liberty. James chapter 1. But whoso looketh into the perfect law of liberty, and continue it therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. So speak ye and so do, James 2:9, as they that shall be judged by the law of liberty. See, the law of liberty said you got to have two witnesses. You can't condemn people. If somebody falsely accuses somebody, they should be punished. That's liberty. That's the law of liberty. Hey, would to God in America we would respect and uphold the law of liberty. Why don't you think about that when you go down to the polling booth? Who's going to give us liberty as opposed to stealing our freedoms and putting us into more bondage? But number two, not only being innocent until proven guilty, look at Genesis chapter 47. You're just preaching your axe to grind politically. I'm preaching the Bible, and would to God every pastor in America will be standing up on Sunday morning, February 3rd, 2008, and preaching the Bible's teaching on liberty. That's what would keep us free in this country, if people were educated about what freedom is. I know what freedom is because I read it in the Bible. And I'm going to expose to you what the Bible teaches liberty is. Number one, it's being innocent until you're proven guilty. And number two, I already touched on this, but number two, it's owning your own property and spending your own money. Did you get that? Owning your own property and spending your own money is part of God's definition of freedom. Let's look at it together. Genesis 47, verse 17. This is the story of Joseph. Joseph is in the land of Egypt. He's the second in command. And, of course, people are starving. They're in poverty. They have no food. And they're coming to Joseph. Now, let me ask you this. Where did Joseph get the food? He went out and farmed it all, right? He made all that food and everything himself, right? And he stored it up for the famine. Now, do you remember where the food came from? It came from the people. Okay, they worked and they took a fifth part of what the people had worked and they put it in to silos and said, you know, here is the food that we're storing up for the famine that's coming. Well, that's great, Joseph. Praise the Lord that God revealed that to you in a dream and revealed that to Pharaoh. And here you are. You're going to save these people's lives because the famine's coming, but you're storing up all this food. Now, let me ask you something. Do you think it was right for Joseph then to turn around and sell that food back to people that he had just taken it from? No. Now, what he should have done and what he ought to have done is that all the people from other countries, because if you study the story, people from all over the world were coming to Egypt because it was the only place you could buy food. They should have sold it to them, right? They should have sold it to the Hebrews. They should have sold it to Jacob and his sons. They should have sold it to the Hivites and the Hittites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Amorites. But the people of Egypt, it was their food that they earned, they built. They ought to have just gone down and gotten it for free because it was their stuff. You know, they were paying into their little Social Security fund for when the famine came, and then it's time to withdraw it. Sorry, they've sold it off. We're selling it back to other people. And we're going to sell you your own food. Can you believe that? But let's read the story. It gets worse. Genesis 47:17. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph. And Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses. Of course, it was the bread that they already earned and put into those silos. and for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, We will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us. Did you hear that? Did you get those two words? Underline those two words in your Bible. Buy us. And our land for bread. And we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh. And give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. Do they own their land anymore? No. Didn't God say about 500 times in the Bible, now that in a perfect world, every man would sit down in peace under his own vine and under his own fig tree and in his own house? How many times have you read that in the Bible? A lot. And he says here, and Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to cities, from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the end thereof. Does it sound like these people are free? Here, sell me yourself, sell me your own body, sell me your land, sell me your cattle, for the food that you're the one that reaped 7 years ago, and then I'm going to move you to a city where I want you to live. You're not going to live there anymore. Now you're going to live in this city. Does that sound like these people are free in Egypt? No, it doesn't. And it says, only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day. Isn't that wonderful? I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase, that ye shall give the 5th part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day. Was it just temporary? Was the famine temporary? Yes. You remember the famine that we had in the United States? It was called the Great Depression. But it's amazing how all of Pharaoh Franklin Roosevelt's help for us is permanent unto this day. It says, unto this day that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. Hey, I've got news for you. Pharaoh in Washington, D.C. takes a whole lot more than the 5th part. Did you know that? Did you know that 15.3% of your income, because everybody knows what the 5th part is, it's 20%, right? 1/5, 20%. Hey, Washington, D.C. takes 15.3%. You say, oh, is that the income tax? No, we haven't even got to taxes yet. That's Social Security and Medicare. That's self-employment tax. If you're self-employed, you know this. As I do, I pay 15.3% self-employment tax. We're getting pretty close to the 5th part. We haven't even got into federal taxes. Haven't even got into state and local taxes. 15.3%. You say, well, I work for a company, so I only pay 7.65%. No, wrong. You're paying 7.65%, and your boss is paying 7.65%, which adds up to 15.3. Guess what? If he weren't paying it to the government, he'd be paying it into your pocket. He's paying that to have you work for him, another 7.65%. So we're all paying 15.3% in Social Security and Medicare. Then you got your federal taxes. Some people's tax bracket's 30%, 20%. The lowest tax bracket in America is 10%. That right there is 25.3%. And then you haven't even gotten into local taxes. Then you haven't gotten into sales tax, where every time you buy something, you're paying another 8 cents on the dollar. That's another 8%. Then you go to the gas pump. About a third of it is going to taxes. Then you pay your heating bill, there's taxes. Telephone bill, there's taxes. Taxes upon taxes. You're paying taxes every time you turn around. If we paid 20%, that would be great.